kid who lost a fight.
I think you couldn't look anymore like a crackhead.
I do. I look like a crackhead who lost a fight tonight. This is great. I love it.
It's awesome.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium.
Mm-hmm.
It is season 3, and it's episode, what is it, 30?
A bunch.
34?
Mini.
I don't even remember. I lost track.
It's mini.
Yeah, 30. It's episode 27. Yeah, episode 27.
Well, that's my...
Marc Alan Edelheit is inbound, but we are having a little bit of difficulties trying to get him into the hangout. So we're going to go ahead and get started jaw-jacking around for a little while until we
should talk about LibertyCon.
And yeah, let's talk about LibertyCon.
Did I mention I attended LibertyCon?
I know.
Somebody said something on some kind of a video that you went to LibertyCon, and so tell us about that.
So LibertyCon is a science fiction and fantasy. Basically, it's a fan and writer convention is the way I kind of took it, because there were a bunch of guys there. David Weber was there. Bain was there. I had a cup of coffee with Larry Correa, just stuff like that. Just a lot of writers, a lot of military sci-fi guys, John Ringo, just tons of them.
What type of coffee did Larry Correa have? I'm just curious.
It's whatever Starbucks was putting in the pot.
some sort of super special magic coffee or something.
Yeah, like he just broke open 45 caliber rounds and just dumped it.
Get some powder in there.
Super nice guy. I mean, just a great guy. He was just super friendly, very very personable. But anyway, it was a lot of conventions and, a lot of panels, a lot of indie and trad pub stuff. I went to a couple of things about Amazon ads, a couple of things about how indie publishing is changing, and then I went to like the Bain panels where they're talking about traditional publishing models and how Bain is actually kind of leading the charge in. Giving out e-arcs and things like that. If you go to bainbooks.com, they actually have a whole library of their backlist that you can download for free.
Right.
Like Ringo's March to the Sea, I think is on it. Awesome. So a lot of great stuff happening there. And it was just a really good time. Now, I will tell you one story. I was trying to meet Toni Weisskopf, who is she's like the publisher at Bain. And I was trying to meet her, so maybe I could approach her about having her on the show, and we could talk about the intersection of traditional publishing and indie publishing. Right. And the two Saturday and Sunday morning, they were having this thing called Walk with the Pros, and she had set it up. And basically, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. You meet out in front of the hotel, and everybody just takes a couple of laps around the block. You do like 3 miles, and it's just a chance for people to kind of get some exercise and talk to each other and get to know each other. So the first day I did it, there's like 40 or 50 of us. There's no way in hell I could talk to her. Second day, I got up early and I went to breakfast early, went back to my room, was putting on my shorts for walking and stuff, slipped on my house shoes because, hotels, you don't want to walk around those carpets.
I can tell you some stories about what we find underneath that carpet, but let's move on with your story for now.
So it's Sunday, so I'm packing my stuff up. I realize I'm running late. I grab my key and stuff. I head out. I get downstairs. We start walking, right? Because I get there right as everybody's leaving. We get about half a block, and I realize I'm still wearing my house shoes. So I'm like, shit. So here I am walking along. Got my socks, my walking shorts, all that, and my house shoes. So about... I don't know. We were coming back around to the hotel from the first lap. So I've walked like a mile and a half in these house shoes. I can feel the blisters beginning to form on the bottom of my feet. So I'm just like, all right, well, I'm just going to have to bail out when we get back to the front of the hotel and maybe go change shoes and try to catch up with them or something like that. We get about, 50 yards from the front of the hotel. And Tony comes up and goes, "Hi, I'm Tony. What's your name?" And I'm Chuck. How are you? And we start talking.
You're suffering. It's a good time to start a conversation.
And I'm like, motherfucker, because I'm not going to break off for this. The whole reason I was doing this is so I could try and get to know her. So I end up walking 3 miles in my house shoes. I got blisters on my feet the size of quarters from this flipping thing.
That's legit.
I've been limping around the house all day today. But I found out she went to high school here in Huntsville, and we actually had a lot to talk about. So I'm hoping I can get her on the show.
Really cool. I'd like to. That'd be interesting. Like to see what she's got to say.
Again, super nice lady. Super nice lady.
Speaking of Bane, I did not finalize in the short story competition.
Oh, we hate Bane. We're getting him out of
Neither
here.
Neither did I.
I'm sure there's probably thousands of people in that contest.
Yeah, I've been spending all day trying to figure out what to do with that story.
Yeah, I did not. So screw you, Bane.
I don't need you. I don't need anything except for these books right here.
This can of oil.
And this can of oil.
You know,
in this podcast and all my friends.
It's really neat, like you were saying earlier about meeting all those people in person, but also seeing how many people are doing different things in both indie and traditional publishing, like Chris Kennedy pairing up with David Weber. I mean, that is the pinnacle of indie publishing and the pinnacle of traditional publishing in their careers, if you want to call it that. Joining together, I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's cool seeing all those hookups.
I do have to.
Casey Ezel. I mean, I talked to her more than a couple of times while I was there, and she's actually doing a project with Korea. You know, they're doing I think they called it Femme Fatale or Femme Noir, something like that.
Some new books coming out.
And you know, she's making big moves too, and that's the thing I like. I like to see these indies making big moves. You know, and because I still believe that hybrid is kind of the sweet spot. You know, a little bit of both worlds.
Yeah, like what we talked about last week about diversifying kind of and putting some in. You know, you talk about going wide with Amazon and then getting out of KU and going into these other markets, and that's all well and good. But I think that you can have Amazon and have KU and then do, you know, a hybrid somewhere. And
that's what I think too.
Is he here?
Hey!
It's Mark.
Oh, it's here, but we can't hear him.
We can just look at him and say, that's a handsome man right there. We can't hear him yet, but there you go. All right.
It's all good. I mean, we could just move your lips and then we'll create the words for you.
You type it in. And
how's that?
Oh, yeah. I can hear you. There we go.
Yes. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Welcome, Mark. Welcome. I'm excited to have you back. Horribly painful.
I'm glad because it's usually me that has a
It's like walking Scott through trying to do a.
I know.
Yeah, I tried Firefox, I tried Explorer, and then Josh emailed me and said, well, try Chrome.
Yeah. Hangouts doesn't like Firefox.
It likes Chrome though, because Chrome and whatnot. So yes. We've been chatting about LibertyCon and Bane Books and whatnot, and just warming it up for you. We're like the opening act for your show tonight.
Nice. So we're live now, right?
Oh, you bet.
We are live. We are live.
We always go live.
Thank you for having me back, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, hey, thanks for coming back. I was going to mention it. I've got some props.
You got a mouse pad there
from the last show. When we had you on the last show, we got the book, but then we got this huge ass
mother of all mouse pads.
Wow.
I have mine
That's been on. Look, Mark, I'm not kidding you. This has been on my desk since you were on season 1 because this is the coolest mouse pad that I've ever owned.
They're not making it anymore. Did I sign that one?
No, but you signed the book did you sign the book, Mark? I don't remember.
I hope I did.
We'll have to track you down like LibertyCon or something sometime, make you sign our mouse pads and all this stuff.
Yeah, this mouse pad has been on my desk the entire. As soon as you sent it, I got it out of the box, slapped it down on the desk. It hasn't moved since.
I'd like to get one as a door magnet for my car because that would be cool.
It could be. It could be.
You know, stick outside the box here.
You know, when those arrived, they were for Dragon Con, and they came in this big box, and I opened the box. And this smell of like dead fish came out of it. Like it was overwhelming. And it was the manufacturing process. And my wife walks in the room and she's like, oh God, what is that smell? And I was like, there's something wrong with the mouse pads. And she's like, no, don't go away. Just put it in the basement.
Nice. I would be in trouble. I have to probably sleep out in the garage with my mouse pads if that happened to me, and whatnot. So Good deal.
Well, so we only invited you back because we got these mouse pads. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah,
Everybody
like a
that doesn't give us
lifetime
mouse
invitation.
pads is not coming back on the show. So
It's a new policy. We need to discuss that in our next company meeting.
Yes, right.
I have nice bookmarks this year.
Nice. Speaking of the mouse pad, the Tiger's Time is the newest book that's coming out, right?
Yeah, it comes out hopefully August 1. That's what we're shooting for at this point. It's actually with the copy editor right now, and it's almost 228,000 words, 816 pages.
Massive.
Book I've ever made, and it comes back on Tuesday. She gave me a heads up and said, "You're getting it on Tuesday." So what that means is I have from Tuesday night, probably because she's on West Coast time, until Sunday to go through all of her corrections, making sure my commas are in place and all my word usage in place, because all the heavy lifting's been done, and then do a final read through by Sunday before it goes off for formatting and publication. And I'm probably going to read the book like 3 times before then, and my eyeballs will literally hurt when I'm done. But it's been 6 months of work, and I just can't wait to get it out. It's my beta readers have seen it. They loved it. They had some really great comments. In fact, we actually changed the book a little bit because of them. And also my agent, my editor, and everybody had input on it, and everybody agreed that there was one part of the book that needed to be changed, which meant that I actually had to add 2 chapters. I probably should have added 3, but I was just that room with 816 pages.
That's insane. It's a monster.
And
so it brings me to a couple of questions that I want to get to later. But I kind of want to. Yes. Coincidentally, I'm reading that book, and yeah, it's huge. But I want to back up just a little bit here and bring our newer viewers and maybe some newer readers that you might have had or that aren't familiar with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Stiger's Tigers and kind of what that is, and then we'll get into some of my questions about book 4.
Okay, well, I'm a passionate kind of guy, and I have this philosophy where if I don't try something, it'll never get done. And one of the things that I had wanted to do for a very long time was write a book. And I puttered around for years, and I just never sat down and got it done. But at the time, I was doing history podcasts, and they're still up. They're free. I haven't done an episode since 2010. And I was driving to the shore one day. Everybody in the car was asleep. If you know Pennsylvania, to go to the Jersey Shore, it's not like going to Florida Beach, but there's a ton of traffic to get there. And we just stopped at a barbecue place. Everybody was full. Everybody passed out in the car. And I'm the only one driving in traffic, and I hate traffic. And I was like, on the wheel, I just wanted to go. And I'm sitting there thinking, the time and effort and energy I was putting into a podcast, I could put into writing a book. Because my first podcast was like, 5 hours long. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I decided that I was going to write a book. And I sat down and wrote Stiger's Tigers in 3 weeks, and then took a year to edit. Prior to that, I've done everything. I used to be a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter. Have you ever seen the movie Roxanne? It's that's kind of like the fire department that I was in. It was in college, and it was up in the Northeast in the town where we're nameless, but it was fantastic. It was the time when you could ride on the beaver tail of the fire truck before liability insurance, and you're waving to everybody, and the first person to get to the department got to drive the truck, and that was the best. But I enjoyed it. I've run restaurants. I've been a school teacher, a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, 4th through 5th, 5th through 8th. I've been a middle school principal. And recently I got into the health insurance world, and I was president of a health insurance company for about 10 years. A little less than 10 years. I was vice president, worked my way up. And then come this January, I made the move to become a full-time author. I've published 6 books, and they've really been successful beyond belief, beyond my expectations. I've got really great fans who keep buying my books, which I'm grateful for. It still amazes me when I put a book out and people fall in love with it. It's like, it's humbling. And so I started publishing in 2015 in March, Tigers. And since then I've published 6 books. This year, my goal is to get 3 books out. Really, the Tigers time is going to be 2 books in one because it's so big. It's twice as large as my largest book, which is the Tigers Fate. And but I wrote Tigers. My passion is military science fiction, and I'm working on a military sci-fi book right now.
I've seen some of your concept art.
It's pretty cool, and I've got like a fantastic illustrator, Piero. I love him, and but I decided I was going to start with something simple and fantasy, and because I figured, you know, people pick apart science fiction all day long, so you want to get your science right, and that's going to be hard, and it is. But I figured fantasy was going to be easy. But when I sat down to write it, I said, you know what? I hate fantasy books that you read where you read about a fight or a battle and it's all glory and charges, and it's not how people would react in the real world. Because I was doing podcasts on, you know, what fighting was like, and I was preparing an ancient history podcast, which I never ended up doing. And it was like, what was an ancient battlefield like 2,000 years ago? Today, nobody knows, because the historians that wrote about it, they wrote about it from the perspective of their audience was the people who fought there. So they didn't. They just said, "Hey, this is what so and so did. He flanked them this way or did that," but they didn't talk about the guts and the blood and what it was like. Every once in a while, you'll hear you'll read something where they say the field ran red. Well, they literally meant that, because, you know, in a modern war today, people get shot. They also get blown up, but the average bullet wound doesn't disgorge as much blood as a sword wound, serial killer kind of shit. Except
like 10,000 of them all together doing
in a football team. Yeah, and it's you know, what was that like? Nobody's seen that for 2,000 years. So, you know, there's a lot of evidence, and you look at how they trained, how they prepared, and the Romans did a lot of writing about training and preparing. And I said, okay, so I want it to be realistic as possible. And I took a fantasy setting and dropped Roman legionaries in it, how they thought, how they, you know, fought, you know, all the norms, everything, and trained and went at it. And it's kind of liberating in a way. It was a lot of work, turned out to be a lot of research, but it was liberating from the perspective that I didn't have to be politically correct, because you read a lot of fantasy books today and they come at it from our norms, what, you know, would be acceptable today. Yeah. You know, but would a Roman legionary or a Roman officer react that way 2,000 years ago? The answer is no. And, you know, I've had people email me and say, you know, I really love the book. I love Stiger, your main character, but I can't decide if his empire they're the good guys. And
it's good. You want some doubt. You know, that's the whole point of making the story interesting, is it shouldn't be like super clear, in my opinion. Right. Anyway, so that's interesting.
Exactly, and it's just a lot of fun, actually. You know, we were my beta readers have seen the latest book, and they get to pick it apart, and I love them. They give me feedback that my agent looks at some of the feedback they give me, and they're like, and so does my editor, and they're like, you've got the best beta readers ever, because most beta readers tell you what you want to hear. They don't tell you what you don't want to hear. And I always want to hear what you don't want to hear as a writer. And I speak to writers all the time. Where they you know, I'll go to conventions and they talk to me, or they email me for advice and stuff like that. And I routinely hear from authors that, hey, you know, I wrote a book and I got an editor, but the editor sucked. And it's like, okay, you know, that instantly throws up, you know, alarm bells. Why does the editor suck? And you ask, and I've had bad editors. And I had a book that I didn't agree with, that I didn't think that, you know, she did a good job, but I thought there could be better. And I went out and hired another editor to go, because as an author, you pay for the editor most times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she improved the book, but not to the degree that I wanted to. But I get a lot of authors or writers that come to me, and they want to be successful. And and the average person that publishes on Amazon today for self-publishing makes less than $500 a year, which means is not successful. And the biggest problem that I think they encounter is they can't take constructive feedback. You know, if you hear, you hear, well, she didn't get my writing. That's usually a sign that there's a problem with it.
Sure.
As an author, you need to listen to that, and you need to decide what's correct and what's not correct. And you've got to have, be objective about it. And one of the things when my books come back from the developmental editor who slaughters the book, and so does my agent, and that it comes back, and it's really tough to hear that feedback because you've just spent 6 months on a book, and they're telling you they don't like this and they don't like that. And every once in a while, they'll throw in a good line like, "Hey, really great detail here. I loved it." And it's one of those things where it's like they want you to feel good while they're tearing you down.
Yeah, it's a sandwich approach.
Exactly.
Something nice. See you
yeah.
later.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I've learned to read the feedback on set, the chapters or whatnot, or motivations, whatever it is, and then think about it because it'll upset you. And that's human nature. That's natural. But to be successful as an author, you need to listen to that feedback and take it, internalize it. And if it after you've calmed down and listened to it, if it makes sense to you, or there's some doubt that maybe they're right, then you want to change it. You want to work on it more.
So you have a true developmental editor, and so a lot of our listeners tonight are going to know exactly the difference between a developmental editor, a line editor, and a copy editor. To me, the distinction is tougher between a copy editor and a line editor.
Correct.
A development editor is a whole nother animal.
Correct.
And so can you talk to us a little bit about the developmental editing process? I think we'd like to.
Sure. So when I got into, I self-published my first book, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have an agent. I launched it. I got an editor, thank God. And she did a good job, but I didn't know what a copy editor is. I didn't know what a developmental editor is. I didn't know what a line editor was. And I didn't know that I needed a copy editor. And a regular editor is not a copy editor. So I published it. It took off. But, in some of the early reviews, people were complaining about, misspellings or word misusage. And I had to go back and correct that. Thankfully, most people loved the book and it took off. So I got barraged by agents wanting to represent me. One guy went ahead and said, "Listen, you pay me $1,500 and I'll sell your book for you." And at the time I was working with insurance agents who, they're whores. And for the most part, there's a really good insurance agent.
That's true.
And I said, you know what? I know brokers. This isn't how it should be. And I went out and I found a good agent. And that's a whole separate story. But she said, "Mark," she read my first book and she's like, you need a developmental editor. And I was like, well, what's that? Yeah. Well, developmental editor looks at your story as a whole. Their job is to do some smoothing with the story where they come across choppy paragraphs. They'll fix it a little bit, but also to focus on the motivations for the characters, to focus on the story arcs for the characters, to focus on the big picture for the book. And it's really important. So my agent and my editor, Hannah, who's absolutely wonderful, I love her. If I was not married, I would marry her. She's so good. She takes my writing and takes it to a whole new level, and really pushes me to be a better writer. So she does a developmental edit, and then my agent does a developmental edit as well. And then my beta readers at the same time get the book, and they tell me what they love and what they hate. And you get it all back at once, and you've got to internalize it and figure out. And if I find my agent and my editor agree on something, and several of my beta readers agree on it, well, then you need to make a change. So it's really, developmental editor really looks at the story. Copy editor looks at, I'm terrible with commas, and I just put them in a random. I refuse to learn how to use proper comma use. But she makes sure my word usage is correct and all my commas are in place. And, she also does line edits as well. But, between the two of them and all my beta readers and my agent, it really works out. My agent usually has an intern that does an edit too. And you can tell the difference between somebody that is experienced and been doing it for years to somebody that's not. And my biggest advice to authors...
What's the difference? I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but what's the difference?
The difference is the quality and the edit, the experience that's there. You know, somebody that's done thousands of books as opposed to, you know, 4 or 5 books, or just gotten out of college. But, you know, I've gone through, I've used three different developmental editors, and the one that I've settled on, who has edited most of my books, is Hannah. And she understands the characters. She's gone through each and every one, and just does a wonderful job with it. And the difference is, my biggest advice to any writer out there, if you've got a book and it's ready to be edited, you've got to make sure it's ready to be edited. You want to interview the editor that you're going to use for developmental editor to find out their background. If you're writing military science fiction, well, do you read military science fiction? Have you edited a military science fiction book? Have you ever edited a military book before? Yeah. If you're doing fantasy, same thing for fantasy. If it's crime, if it's mystery, whatever it is, you want to make sure that that editor that you use has experience doing that. You also want to, it's okay to ask them for references, to talk to other authors who've done their work, and there's some great agencies out there that you can go to that do this. But, you know, my agent has been in the business forever. She's absolutely fantastic. And she was able to bring together a really good team for me. And my copy editor is absolutely fantastic. You can look at a 100,000-word novel 50 times after it's been developmental edited, after the beta. I've got 25 beta readers. After they've gone through it, you read it for 50 times, and she will still find misused words or commas because her eyes just see it. It's crazy. And then I've got this particular fault where it's the word farther as opposed to further. Well, I use further. She uses farther. And no matter how many times I go through the manuscript and make the usage correct, she will always find one word, one farther or further that I used instead of farther. In the last book, she wrote me a comment in the back, and after she was like, you know, drats. You found the one usage where this is correct. So you
should make up a new, since it's fantasy, you should make up a new word about farther, and you know, can't be wrong because you created it in its usage.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is that people that read the book will hammer you for it in your reviews.
Yeah.
And that's why when you go to press, you want your book to be as polished as possible. Because I don't care how many edits it's gotten, you're going to find in a 100,000-word book, you're going to find 1 or 2 or 3 errors. That's a good book. But somebody will castigate you on and say, you know what, I read it and I found 2 errors, and it suffered from, you know, it hurt my enjoyment of the book. And that's normal. That's
like
normal.
Somebody says poorly edited. You're like, does that mean that they had 2 commas? Because people never quantify in those reviews. They say, well, this book needed an editor, and they might be talking about you don't use the Oxford comma, or they might be talking about you had 15 storylines and went nowhere, and a bunch of characters that didn't contribute to the story, and the development editor didn't axe them out. But they don't. You know, there's no way to know. But
you're absolutely right, and you know, you can't take reviews personally. I read each and every one. I make a point of it. And what are you drinking, by the way?
Oh,
something yummy, something delicious. I'm sure.
Forester.
Oh, I see. I was thinking of having Makers tonight, but I ended up going with Spaten, and I've got one right here. So I figured this is a 2-beer interview. But
it is. I actually have 2 beers.
Oh, we got started like an hour before that. So
that's fantastic. But
I get yelled at by Chuck, so I can't get drunk on air no more.
I did not yell at you. I
was
thought it was awesome.
He raised his voice.
You got drunk enough to ask me to be a co-host, so that was fun.
That's true. And here we are a year or 2 later. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best things happen when you're making bad decisions.
Yes.
That doesn't really make sense, but I'm sure that it makes sense to somebody somewhere. So we'll go.
So
you know,
when you're looking at reviews, right? As a writer, I read each and every one. And I had a debate with John Ringo on a panel at DragonCon a couple of years ago about this. And we were talking about reviews, and he's like, "You still read reviews?" And I was like, "Yeah." Because every once in a while you get an off-the-wall review. You're wondering, did they even read my book? Because you'll get somebody that'll read a review for your book and they meant somebody else.
But they have a review that's like, product was delivered on time, high quality, would buy again.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that review? Exactly.
Or I didn't like the female lead in the book when there's no female lead in the book. So
right. Yeah. I just got one of those. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
We get some that are I hate this book, but they've read all of our books. Like all 15 of Richard's and all of Scott's and all of mine and everybody else. He gives everybody 2 stars.
He hates all of them, but he keeps reading them. I have to love that guy.
You know what? I look at that and say, hey, listen, thank you for your negative review. You bought my book.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
But I actually find that in a lot of the reviews, and you look at my first one, I think it's the review counter is stuck on Amazon. It's like at 849, and I keep getting new reviews, and it doesn't go up, the first one. But I read each and every review as it comes in there, and they'll give you some really good feedback sometimes, where it's like, I give you a 4-star review, and this is what I didn't like about the book. And as a writer, I think that's helpful. And when I go to conventions and I meet fans, I will get people that come up to me and they'll like, I love your book, and they chase you down or whatever. And it's like, well, what did you like about it? And I'll start questioning. And what didn't you like? Because here's an opportunity to get direct feedback from the consumer to make you a better writer. And I think my writing has improved over the books. You read my first book, and I actually have reviews with the second book where people are like, it's like somebody else wrote this book. And that's taking feedback and taking it to that next level. But if you don't take feedback, it's not a good thing, because you're not going to be successful writing. And I can't tell you how many people, and I've spoken to my agent about this, because there's so many people that want to be writers. They want to be successful. And she'll talk to a prospective author and then ask me to talk to them. And I'll ask her later. I'll be like, well, did you guys ever get together and make a real deal? And she'll be like, no, I don't think you can take feedback, or something like that, or no, it just didn't work out. When she agreed to represent me, before she agreed, she went ahead and said, listen, she was very sweet on the phone, and said, I think you've made some mistakes in this book. We need to fix it. If I'm going to work with you, I want you to work with me. And I want you to be able to take constructive feedback. And if you can't, then we're not going to have a good partnership here. You don't have to agree with everything I say, but I want you to listen. And I have. And it's taken my books. That first year, we did like 25,000 books. The second year, we did 189,000, 200,000. This year, we haven't released a book. We're up to 250,000 books almost. Now, when the Tiger's Time comes out, it's going to break the internet, or break Amazon. I'm absolutely convinced.
I'm cry right now as I really sink in the numbers you just threw out to us. Like it's so
really, I almost choked there for a second.
Well, I looked it up. I looked it up on your author page, and I can't remember how many reviews you had on Stiger's Tigers when you first came on in 2016. But when you came on, I think the book had been out a year, and I'm not sure.
I thought it was in the 140s or something. It sticks in my head.
Well, right now we're at you're at 849 for book one.
It's a magic
at a 4.5 star average. But then all the rest of them, I mean, you don't have less than 200 reviews on all of the books you have up there. And
I can't even break 50.
I think that 849 is the magic number, and we should all strive to get 849 reviews exactly. And after that, just cut them off. Say we won't go any further.
It's like Amazon cut me off. I've been, my agent has been reaching out to them.
Let's share with other people now. No more reviews for you.
Yeah.
So I think the more interesting thing to note on the reviews is that you do have a metric shit ton of reviews, but they all
grateful for everyone.
Average about 4.8 stars.
Yeah,
on across the series.
Yeah,
and so when you average that across the series,
that's impressive.
It's an impressive number in and of itself. But when you average that across the series, you've obviously done two things. You've found readers and found a story niche that you are well adept at writing, and readers that love reading it. But you're also, I mean, you've done it correctly. I mean, you have 5 books out now, and how many years? 3 years? 6 years.
Don't short him a book.
Sorry, don't short him. And you have another one coming out.
2015.
and so, I mean, you've done an impressive job with this series, and I want to talk about a little bit.
Well, before you go on, it's not just me. It's really a team effort. Okay. It's the editors, it's the beta readers, it's my agent, all having feedback and helping the book become better. But and it's also the fans. I get a lot of feedback from people, and I internalize that, and I use Facebook to interact with them, and I think I've got, like, between follows and likes, I think there's like 16,000 people, 9,000 follows and whatever. But it's the best place to interact with people. And, you guys are talking about reviews, and as an author, you want to promote yourself shamelessly, and that's a whole different story. But also, when you're interacting with people and people tell you they love the book, you want to ask for those reviews as well, and say, hey, I'm really pleased you enjoyed the book, and I am. Can you leave a review? It helps drive sales, and it does.
So I usually say, can you leave a review or I'll cry. If you don't leave a review, I'm going to cry like a baby. So far that hasn't worked for me.
Whatever works, but don't be shy. Ask for the reviews. And, it's also helpful because they'll give a review and they'll put in there what they like and what they don't like a lot of times. And that's helpful to internalize that. And you're right. You gotta keep in mind, you're writing for your audience.
Sure.
And what do they like? And I didn't know what they liked. Now I kind of do, and I've got some thoughts on it. But it's. But anyway, ask your question. You had a question.
So we're gonna move into that, and I'd like to kind of get into the process of you writing this massive tome, and then we've got some reader questions we want to get into too.
Yeah, but I'll show you the tome.
Oh, we love visuals.
We love props.
This is.
Oh my God.
This is the tome.
Is that
and it's a short 2 chapters, 40 pages.
Huh.
I could brain somebody with it.
You probably should make sure you use proper lifting technique. Lift with your legs when you pick that thing.
That's right.
You could throw something out.
Maybe one of those trucks they use for refrigerators. That would be good.
Yeah. Just up a dolly.
So before we get into that, I want to talk about the show sponsor for today's episode, and that is Requiem for Medusa. It is the Tyrus Rechs Contracts and Terminations book by Nicole and Jason Anspach in their Galaxy's Edge series. It's the latest publication they have. It came out 2 weeks ago on the 15th of June. Here is the blurb. It's not just payback, it's personal. The scum hiding it deep inside the reach along the Galaxy's Edge thought they could kill her and not pay the price. For years, these hardened killers have run roughshod over the lawless worlds where Republic justice is never as fast as a blaster in your hand, where double crosses and death are part of every deal. They thought this time would be no different. They were wrong. This time, the guild sent the legendary bounty hunter Tyrus Rechs.
Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun,
dun.
As the infamous a blaster in your hand, it's good.
That's right. As the infamous Rex pursues the men who murdered his colleague, he's hell-bent on justice. Heedless of the trail of destruction he leaves across ruined worlds and fantastic gambling meccas alike, because for Rex, this isn't just another guild contract, it's personal. And that's
what was the name of that book again? It sounds interesting.
It's called Requiem for Medusa. It's written in the Galaxy's Edge universe by Nick Cole and Jason Anspach, but is not part of the main series. It's a
Tyrus Rechs was introduced in what was the second book in the Galaxy's Edge?
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He was.
So I have to check it out. I'm going in the writing. I'm in writing mode now because the Tiger's time's done. So I actually get some free time. And
yay!
That's interesting.
Nice.
But
so yeah, speaking of the Tiger's time, so that comes out in August, and 280 some odd thousand words.
227,000, almost 28.
My question is that you had this cover done in 2016.
Yeah.
And so you knew the book was going to get written.
Yes.
But I don't think at that time you had written book 2 or 3, and maybe you had written book 2, but definitely not 3.
No, I had finished book 3. So
you had
book 3. When did we do the interview? Because book 3 came out July of 16.
Might have been okay. So it might have been right. I think it was March of 2016 when you had you on the show. So you might have not published it yet, but it might have been done.
Yeah,
that sounds right. I think I remember that talking about it's going to be released soon.
Yeah, I had the outline for the book, but I wasn't ready to write it. The Tiger's fate took a lot out of me, and I said, you know what, I need to work on something different. And I also didn't want to fall into the trap that a lot of authors do, where they release one series, and then after they finish that series that's very successful, they can't translate that to others. So I started the Karis saga, which is in a way a prequel. It's in the same universe, but it takes place 2,000 years before. I also started, because I started Stiger's Tigers in the middle of the series, when he was he was a hard-bitten veteran. I went back and I started telling his early years in the military, which has been wildly successful. In fact, we released book 2 for free on my website, one chapter at a time, which was Fort Covenant, and then published it, and everybody went out and bought the book.
We've had this discussion about prequels. That's kind of like a prequel then, right? Would you agree?
It is a prequel, yeah.
So some people love prequels, but I like prequels, but I'm not sure. We just had this discussion about whether or not they work or not. I think they work great. I love a prequel, but
they do, and
well done ones, of course.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the key. You've got to hit that same tone. Like I read David Eddings, right? I love David Eddings' work. You guys have read it, yeah. But when I went back to read the Belgaria, or what was the one? The Belgarian and Polgaria, I didn't like him as much. But I love the main series. So, it's keeping that tension, that the action going. And in a way, when I went back to tell Stiger's early years, I had a lot of freedom because I could go anywhere I wanted. I knew what had happened to him, what he had to go through to get to where he was in Stiger's Tigers, but I could have a lot of fun with it as well. And I could literally write 12 prequel books if I wanted to get him up to the main, where he is in the main series, and I may very well do that because people love it. But people fell in love with him. They also fell in love with his companion, Eli, the elf.
Yep.
And I introduced him without really saying anything about it in book 2 of the Tales of the Seven series, and people absolutely went nuts over it, because there's a dramatic moment, and they come in, and we're about to. I'm writing book 3 of that now while I'm writing the Karis saga, and I'm going to deliver one chapter a week or 2 weeks, and we're about to put out on my website for free. We're going to give it away again, and I think it's for me. There's a lot of time for people between books. The Tiger's Fate to the Tiger's Time is 2 years basically. I didn't like that time, but I had other projects I needed to get done, and I wanted, while people were waiting, they want more of my writing, so maybe they'll go to the Tales of the Seventh, or maybe they'll go to Karis, and I'll build up the reader bases for those books, and that's really the goal, and to really make its writing self-sustaining for me. But at the same time, it's opening up more of the universe, and it's a lot of fun doing it. It's a nice break, because while I'm writing like Karis, and I'm actually writing book 2 of Karis, which is going to be a roller coaster. I've got the outline for the Tiger's Wrath, which is book 5 in the Chronicles series, And I'm tweaking it and I'm working on it. At the same time, I'm also working on an outline for Project Indigo, which is my science fiction book. And I'm doing a lot of research about science and space. And in fact, we went to a SpaceX launch. It took my family down there, and it was fantastic. If you have the opportunity to go to a space launch, whether it's Blue Origin, whether it's Boeing, whatever, go and see it, because there's nothing like being within 3 miles or 4 miles of the launch and actually feeling it vibrate you and watching this thing go up into the air and just keep going. And for my kids, it's one of those things where it's like, science is cool, and this is a way to show. But we were there and we had a tour, and it was a really cool tour. And the guy who gave us the tour was like, whenever there's a rocket launch here, you don't want to be in the swamp around the Kennedy Space Center. And I was like, oh wow. He goes, because it drives the snakes and the alligators nuts. And it's like, oh, I didn't want to be there anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
snakes and alligators. You pretty much lost me right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a couple of questions from the chat, if I can find them. J.R. Hanley wanted to
chat, by the way, so you guys see it.
Okay. J.R. Hanley wants to know when the 4th book is coming out in audio.
Audio. I'm going to get the book back on Tuesday. I'm going to make the copy editing changes. It'll probably be a day. And then the audio publisher, Podium, they do a wonderful job. They get the book that next day. And they've already got the audio. They've got Stephen Brand, who does the wonderful audio. And it's the same team that did The Martian. So they do a fantastic job.
Nice.
And by the way, if you haven't listened to the audiobooks, you should, because they're fantastic.
I listened to the first one in audio.
You did? Yeah, it just keeps getting better and better and better. So I would guess probably within 90 days, but I don't know. It's up to them. And it's also up to Audible as to when they schedule it. Because it's such a big book, it may take 4 months instead of 3 for them to get it out. I know that it's on the top of their priority because the series has been so successful, and they really want it done. They keep emailing me and asking me, and they're wonderful people, and I love them. They keep asking me, "Is the book done? Is it ready? Is it ready?" And it's neat, and it's probably going to be somewhere, I would guess, about 36 hours long, just from the size.
Wow,
that would be my guess.
A Sanderson-sized book, or
yeah, it is
exactly.
And I'm going to give you a
Robert Jordan size.
Fort Covenant, which we released last year in December. It was a smaller book, about 70,000 words. It was 6 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bard of Today says, I also write large books. How do you afford the price tags associated with editing large novels?
That's a good question. It's tricky. When I have a book come out, I have a lot of people, when I post it, I send out a newsletter. People sign up to my newsletter. That's really key. And also I've got Facebook. And whenever I have a book come out, I get literally dozens of people that email me that says, oh my gosh, because we don't do a pre-order. Because pre-order screws up your rankings with Amazon and everything else. So, and that's a different story there. But I get emails from people that say, look, I'm so excited to read this book, but I got to wait till payday. So, would I like to charge more and make more? Yeah, but I've got to keep it real. When The Tiger's Fate came out, the price was $5.99, and a lot of people complained about that. But that was a 110,000-page book. It's the largest book I wrote to that date. It's now selling for $4.99, and when The Tiger's Time comes out, it's going to be $6.99. Now that's a bargain compared to The Tiger's Fate because it's double the size.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't think we can charge more than that. I think that I'll lose sales, and I don't want to make it unaffordable for people that can't afford it. And the economy's rolling now, but that doesn't mean everybody can afford everything they want. And I've got a really great deal with Amazon where I think I'm compensated well. And you get 100,000 sales, and for a book that's $6.99, what you get out of it ends up being a significant amount. And I look at it that way. Now, the print books, I'm not sure. We may have, because of the size with CreateSpace right now, their white glove with Amazon is kind of unsure whether or not it'll fit in one book. We may have to break it up in part 2, and I'm not thrilled about that. But I think that if we decrease the font, they're going to work on it. But I'm not sure what, just because of the size, what the print version is going to sell for. The average is $11.99, and I think that's a lot. So for print.
I'm interested in it. Kind of comes off of Bard's question a little bit with editing. So I split editing with my collaborator when we're doing Terra Nova series, and then on the rest of my stuff, I pay up front. It looks like, at least with Tigers, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I'm looking at the inside, and it looks like you're with Telemuchus Press.
Yeah, they're a self-publishing company. They did the formatting for me. They did the cover. They didn't do any of the editing. I took care of that on myself.
Okay.
Nowadays, we've got a deal with Amazon through a division of theirs called White Glove. They do all the formatting. I still do the cover work with Telemachus because I like how they do it. But they do all the formatting and set everything up for me, and they're really wonderful people over at White Glove. And it's one of those programs where a lot of people don't realize that Amazon's the largest publisher in the world. They've got a lot of imprints, and my agent was able to get me in this program, and we had a choice with my latest book, The Kara Saga. Do we go traditional publishing, or do we go through Amazon? And there's some upsides to traditional publishing in that it opens you to a new audience, but there's also a lot of downsides. Like, you could give them your book, and it could take them 2 years or longer before it hits press, and they may want you to make changes, and then you get reduced commissions, royalties, basically. I think I was speaking with somebody at one of the cons, and they were like, they get 12%, and I was like, holy cow! And they only get paid twice a year. With Amazon, you get paid every month.
Which is nice.
Which is nice, yeah. Allows you to feed your family.
Yeah, food is good.
But I've also heard horror stories where somebody will give a book to a traditional publisher, and they'll get an advance, but it'll never get published. And they're expecting income from that. It's hard. Yeah. So I've got a great audience right now, and I think I've got the best job in the world. I really do. It's not for everybody. It's hard work. I work half days, 12 hours a day, every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect.
That's pretty good.
When you said you were going to go through the entire manuscript for book 4 and do the copy edits in one day, I about just like fell over in my chair.
Well, it's real. What I mean by that is I get the manuscript back in Word, and it's got all the corrections in it. So I will go through, and first thing I'll do is do all the commas, because there are millions of them. And that'll take like 2 or 3 hours. And by the time I'm done, my finger will hurt. Lots of alcohol. And then I'll go through and look at the line edits and everything like that. I do it in stages. You just, like when I get a developmental book back, I look at the line smoothing first, and then I go back and look at all the comments like the next day or the day after to see whether things need to be changed. But from the copy edit, it just takes, there's going to be a lot, but most of it is she's going to be right on, and I'm going to automatically accept what she says. Yeah. And I don't expect it on my end to be a lot of work. What's going to be a lot of work for me is the read through. And this is where a lot of people make a mistake. They get a book back from an editor, they accept all the changes, or they go through and they do the changes, and then they think the book's perfect. It's not. You got to read it, and then read it again, and then read it again, and then read it another time to the point where you hate your fucking book. Excuse my French.
Nope. Keeping it real.
Fucking fine. Don't worry about it.
And then it's ready, and you'll still have mistakes in the book. I've spoken to a number of people that have published the book. It went out, and they skipped that crucial stage. They figured they were done when the editor had finished. And you own the book. It's like my daughter about 6-7 months ago went to a house and there was a gun there. Okay, I grew up around guns, and she was kind of freaked out about it. And I was thinking, well, you know, my father taught me gun safety when I was a kid. He was a New Jersey state trooper, and you know, I need to teach her gun safety. So I went out and bought a .22, and because if you fire a gun, you own what comes out of that barrel, basically. And if you don't respect the firearm, you know, it's Pennsylvania. A lot of people have firearms. You can get one of your kids, go over to somebody's house, and they see a handgun. They think it's a toy, pick it up, and it's got a bullet in it, and boom, somebody gets hurt.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
You teach them respect. And it's the same kind of thing where you own that book once you publish it. So you want it to be as polished as possible. And but oh, by the way, I got a funny quick story with we went to an indoor range, which was a mistake, for my first time with my daughter. And, I got this little .22 rifle. It was like $125. And I'm setting up there in one of the stalls, and the guy next to me has an SKS. Nice. You know, Chinese. Just like, well, he's doing it, and we're so close. You can feel the vibration of each round in your body. And I look around, and Isabella's like in the corner like this, like, oh my, she's got the sound protection on it. But after like 5 minutes, she was like, oh, it's not going to hurt me. She was fine. But it was just, I should have taken her to an outdoor range.
I had a similar experience with somebody shooting a Desert Eagle next to us, which it can be the same caliber, but since it's a gas-operated handgun, it's freaking, they're so loud. It's
it's like a thunderstorm, like right there, man. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, and I always love the people that go and rent the automatic rifle at the range, you know, the MP5 or whatever, and then they shoot, and they're like upset that they can't hit the target.
I worked at a range for a while, and people would come in and rent the guns with the laser sights. This is back in the 90s, and they could not hit really far.
No,
but the laser sights does not make you accurate. That's what people don't understand.
That's some lethal weapon bullshit right there.
Trigger control, your breath control, you know, your master grip, all those things is what makes it accurate.
It's all here.
Just having the laser sight means nothing.
Absolutely. I'm getting ready to write a military science fiction novel. And, you know, I'm doing my research on it. And, you know, you see in the movies where the people just fire automatic weapons constantly, they're hitting everything. And every professional I speak to that is in the military that, you know, they're doing a special job, like special forces, Green Berets or SEALs or whoever, or former SEALs or whatever, you know, it's all focus and control. And, you know, I don't want to say one shot, one kill, but, you know, like the SOE, the British SOE, they were taught to double tap people, and that how they do it, whether from the hip or whatever. But it's all about control, and it makes a real difference. And a lot of people don't realize it. And you wonder, you look at like some of the firefights that our military has had against people that, you know, in whether it's Afghanistan or whether it's Iraq or Somalia or whatever, and the death toll is so lopsided. And it's kind of sad, you know, that people end up dying this way, but it's all about training and control. And
training makes a big difference.
I want to make sure that's right when I write the book. So
absolutely.
So one of the questions we had. Let me see if I can find it.
The one from JR?
Yeah, did you have it?
Yeah, I got it if you don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. JR wants to know, with everything you do for yourself, what does your agent bring to the table? What do you need them for?
Oh, well, first off, she took me from 25,000 books to, I think it was like 189,000 one year.
Well,
that's huge right there.
That's it, yeah.
It's just a small thing.
Yes, a small
probably worth the cost of admission.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, you want to find an agent that you're not on the agent's side, but the agent is on your side. That the agent is rooting for you.
Yeah.
I'm happy every month that my agent makes the commission 15% every month on the ebooks and print books. I love it. I absolutely love it because she is there for me when I need her. And she tells me, it tells me how it is. Like my first book, before we signed, she had basically given me a test. And this is before she made the offer. And well, she kind of made it. And she's like, listen, you need to listen to me. And I was like, okay. She goes, well, I don't like how you ended the book. And I'm like, in the climactic battle. And I'm like, oh yeah, why? I thought it was great. And she goes, well, you know, he helps defeat this creature of evil, but he basically ends up getting knocked out and then wakes up and it's all resolved. You can't have that. And I thought about it and I was like, holy shit, she's right. And I changed the ending of Stiger's Tyrus. So, you know, she gives it to me straight how it is. She told me I need a Facebook page. And I wasn't into Facebook. Everybody was. But you know what? It's one of those things where it's like the best place to interact with fans. Does Facebook advertising work that well? No. But guess what? You get to interact with people there. She got me a marketing specialist who I used in the beginning that showed me how to boost my sales. And together they really built a marketing plan for me to build my brand. It's all about your brand as an author. You've got to build it and you've got to promote yourself shamelessly. I started getting invites to conventions and it's like, well, you want to go do panels because you get in front of people and you talk. And one of the first panels I did at DragonCon, I was on a panel with SM Sterling, Bill Fawcett, John Ringo, and 2 other people I don't know that were smaller. And it was just, I don't remember who they are. I see them all the time when I go. They go to the conventions and they sell their books at the conventions, and that's fine. They make a living at it, but they're just, it's just, I just don't move in the same circles. So I was at the convention and I was sitting there with SM Sterling, and I was drinking because we got there and they have escalators that go down to the room that we were going in, and the line, we had to walk past like 3 flights down. They'd stop the escalators because people were waiting to get in. There's like 4,000 people waiting to get in. And they were, at the time, they were there to see other people, not me. And so I was like, to my wife, I was like, I need a drink before I go in there. And we walk in there, and in the middle of the panel, Sterling goes ahead and puts his hand on his mic. And there's a guy at the end of the panel, and I can't remember what his name is, and he was rude to the people out in the audience. Like, and he was at the convention to sell books. He's like, you don't want to be like him. And I'm like, well, of course I don't want to be like him. He goes, no, you don't understand. After this is over here, people are going to hang around. It's your opportunity to go and talk to them and form a lasting opinion. And if they walk away, they're going to buy your books forever because they're going to remember that one moment that you spent the time to talk with them. He's going to walk right out. This is your opportunity. And this is a guy who sold millions of books. And I said, holy shit, he's right. But I wouldn't have gone to the convention if my agent hadn't prodded me. So, and you know, because I was working 2 jobs basically. I was at the time I was a vice president of a healthcare related business before I became president, and essentially I was writing at nights. So it was a big commitment in my time, and it turned out to be really wonderful. And to the point where last year we gave away 600 free books. My agent was like, when you go to the convention, everybody's going to be selling stuff. Why don't you go and you want to give books away for free to get people invested in your writing to help you build your brand. We give away 600 free books. We went, my wife and I, and like we're going to do it differently next time. But we walked around the convention. We had a book signing where we gave books away. I was next to Jim Butcher. He's a really great guy.
Nice.
Another guy who has thousands of people show up to do it. And they were coming off his line, and we were just giving them free books. I had people tracking me down that wanted to talk. And as people, they were standing there, as people were coming up, you talk to them and then go back to the conversation. But so we were walking around at Dragon Con at the beginning, and they give tours. And we went down to the author area, and we brought about 75 books with us. And they were giving tours, and the people giving tours worked in the author section, and they were like, the authors are wonderful. You take time to talk to them, and then we would just crash their group and give away a free book. And I got a lot of people that wrote me and said, thank you. I really loved your book, and I've read all your books. And, are you going to be at this convention or that convention? And it's humbling, because you spend so much time, energy, and effort writing a book, and then people love it. But if you don't market yourself, nobody's going to discover your book. And there's so many ways to do it. They got websites to help you do it. BookBub, Book Gorilla, all those. And when you have an Amazon, like, I'm happy to give Stiger's Tigers away on a regular basis. If you make it free permanently, it loses its appeal. But if you, Amazon does special promotions for me these days. But before that, I would have that book, and then I have the Tiger and the Tiger's Fate, and I would give it away for like 3 days, and I'd pump some money into marketing and build my brand. I think the best we ever did was 18,000 free giveaways. Wow. And that translates into a lot of sales. Not everybody's going to read the book, but if you figure 40 to 50% of the people are going to read the book, they're going to buy your other work. Some people are not going to like it. But I got one guy recently that emailed me, really nice guy, or messaged me on Facebook, and went ahead and said, Marc, I got this book free like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I'm reading it now. And I got to tell you, I love it. And in a week, I've blown through your series, and damn it, you can't leave. What kind of a sadist leaves you on a cliffhanger like that? And when's the next book coming out? And it's fun.
What I think is also cool is that you mentioned selling yourself, but not just doing book bubs or newsletter lists or anything, but you're there for your fans and your readers on Facebook too, where you've got I watched several of your live broadcasts where you either read a little bit about your book or you talk about where you're at in the book, and you have some interaction with fans there. And I think that's really, really neat, and something I think more authors should probably do as they're writing. We have the show, so we get to talk to people on the show, but there's a lot of stuff on there that I think authors mistake using Facebook to market and to touch their fans as just posting a link to buy their book every 3 days, and that's all you see of them on Facebook.
Every now and then we have somebody who jumps on our group and tries to just blast a bunch of we always
I brought out the band hammer this week, and I slapped somebody with a band like 5 seconds after they posted on. But I like that you reach out to your readers with those videos, and you can kind of interact because they can talk to you and you can talk to them. So that's neat.
Yeah. And
making friends and
we also go ahead and put out concept art for the stories. Anything that I can do to keep people engaged, I try to do. I experimented with Twitter. Didn't see anything.
Yeah, I don't like Twitter. That's a storm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of junk, and most people don't pay attention to it. Experimented with Tumblr, had no real success there. But Facebook, I really look at Facebook as a way to interact with fans, and also think of it like a bigger newsletter in a way than your main newsletter. And when you have a newsletter as an author, my agent told me, and really the marketing specialist told me that you really only want to use your newsletter when a book comes out, or you've got some kind of major update or something like that, because people unsubscribe, and they do. So you've really got to ration your use of the newsletter, and your newsletter is for people to really get those initial sales going and give people a heads up. Hey, the book's out. Amazon does the same thing now. The problem with Amazon is they don't tell you how many people are following you. It's a little frustrating, but you can always tell when the Amazon marketing kicks in because you see the sales go through.
Right.
But Facebook, I've got like 9,000 people that like me, not over 9,000 people that are following me. A little slight difference there. One, they get to the top of the feed. Others, they show up in the feed. But I try not to put too much marketing on there. And just keep it more of a relaxed place where I can communicate to people and say, hey, look, I'm working on Project Indigo. I want to share you some concept art. And it gets people excited, gets people engaged. And then they start thinking about your writing. And it also brings, you'll get people that'll share your posts, and it brings new people to the page. And it's just, it's really a neat tool. Now, the whole privacy thing with Facebook is a different story.
Yeah, I posted the link to your author page. I posted in our live chat there. So if you're watching on the show live, somewhere up in the feeds, somewhere around here, is the link to his Facebook page for the author type, and I'll put it in the show notes also when I bring it back up. And
we also just redid my website, my author website with maenovels.com. And that was the previous website I had designed. My agent got me my web developers, absolutely fantastic. There goes the cap. But she looked at it recently and she was like, it's become too cluttered. You need to redo it. That's something else she brings. And we redid it, and I think it came out quite nice. So,
yeah, I'm looking at it actually right now. It does look really nice. I put the link in the live chat, and I'll put that in the show notes. Make sure you sign up for his newsletter for sure. And so August, right, is when Tigers Times is coming out?
I'm hoping end of July, but it's such a big book. I really have no idea how long it's going to take him, the format. We're hoping it'll take him like 2 weeks, and if they do, then it'll be up like 2 or 3 days before August, which is always nice. But most likely around August 1 or the week after. And I honestly can't wait for it to get out. It's painful at this point.
Well, I will tell you that if you haven't read any of Stiger's Tigers, definitely go and check out the first book, either Audible or on ebook or print. I listened to the audiobook version, absolutely loved it. It was a really cool story, really neat take on fantasy that is unique. And I don't know that I've ever read a fantasy novel that's set in a Roman Legion type atmosphere. So if you're into fantasy but you need something different, definitely go check that book out. I highly recommend it. He's got really kick-ass mouse pads. Limited edition.
Yes. So, and for the record, mine did not smell like fish when I got it. Something.
Oh, hold on.
I complained about that, and they wrote back and they say it'll air out. And they were right.
Well, they're not. They know their business.
It's more like a largemouth bass or maybe a crappie. I'm not sure.
Let's have a smell testing. We'll have a big show sometime.
I think we're doing coffee mugs next, so that'll be.
Oh yeah, is it a big coffee mug? Because my coffee mugs are all too small. I need one.
I think they're going to be big. Yeah, you need a lot. You need lots of coffee.
I drink my coffee in a 32-ounce tumbler.
So let's see.
In all honesty, I thought about doing like these, like cocktail glasses. I mean, everybody does like coffee mugs and stuff. But I was thinking, because a lot of times I like to sit down and have a drink, read a book. I don't know. Cool. It was an idea. I don't know.
Could be. We had your time here.
We know I suck at business.
I really like the books I'm seeing in the background there. So I've read a number of them, and I see Harry Potter there, which I'm reading my.
Oh yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
Harry Potter is my favorite series, and I got all my Sanderson books and Martin books up here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we should talk more about your bobblehead collection there. And
that is an impressive bobblehead collection.
Now my daughter has one too, so no comment there. But
interesting thing about my bobblehead collection is they slowly disappear as my son starts getting taller. The bobbleheads start disappearing. Like Iron Man was over here by the Firefly, and now he's over here on my desk because I guess he didn't need to be over there.
The time is coming soon for you, Josh.
Star Wars there too. Is that the DVD set?
That is the DVD set. Yes, the original DVD set down there. And I've got. Hold on, I got to bring this up a little bit. Then you can see. Wow. These are all my. Star Wars collectibles here. That's a gumball machine.
Oh wow!
And then I've got about 7 of the Dark Horse Game of Thrones figures. I order them about one or two every month.
You have Thrawn up there?
This is that's Arthas from World of Warcraft.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, slowly building my. And the cool thing is, I'm like, it's all props for the show, right? They're not dolls, JR.
No,
you don't have a doll collection.
Set pieces. That's what you call them, Josh.
They're set pieces.
That's right. I'm thinking about Spaceballs here.
That's right.
Were you guys disappointed by the latest Star Wars movie? Not Solo.
Yes, we should probably have a whole separate show.
That's a whole other episode, man.
So I will say that I have not seen Solo yet. So
I like Solo. I will go on record right now. I will fight. I don't care how bad it did. I liked Solo. I thought it was
a good movie.
Solid space adventure.
It was a good movie. It wasn't a great movie.
Right. I agree with that.
I think the problem is that the guy who played Solo did a good job, but he was forgettable.
Yeah.
Donald Glover, who played, I think that's his name, who
stole
played
every scene he was in.
Lando, he nailed Lando.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know.
I have to say, I think Rogue One is probably my favorite Star Wars
Rogue
movie.
One was awesome. But Solo filled in the backstory perfectly. I mean, it hit all the points. I think the biggest weakness, as good a job as the young actor did, the guy playing Solo, I think a lot of people wanted someone who looked like a young Harrison Ford, and he didn't.
No.
You know?
I don't think he pulled it off, that swagger.
He was too, I don't want to say short, but there was just something about his stance that wasn't right. He just
one of the things my really good friend said about the movie, and I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to it yet, but he said when you come to episode 4, when you come to A New Hope, you meet Han, and he really doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself and Chewie and the Vulcan. And he said when he left Solo, he didn't feel like there was that I don't give a shit about anything feeling. It was more of a really positive.
Yeah, but I also think that, I mean, this is Han very young.
Yeah.
Right? And I think by the time you hit episode 4, he's done a lot more shit between those two movies.
And in the first one,
because he makes the Kessel Run in Solo. So there's a lot of space between those two narratives.
12 parsecs.
Yeah, parsecs.
It explains why, but it also is interesting. It explains why that's important. It's not just an ego thing. That was really important for that story. If you haven't watched it yet, the other thing is what's Solo's love interest or whatever in Solo is Daenerys. And I never know anybody's name, so my wife pointed out to me that and I think she's awesome and she's a great actor.
And the twist supposed to come out was
So it's I look at stories and I love good stories. Solo is a good story, right?
Yeah.
The what is it? What was the last one? The Last Jedi.
The last Star Wars movie I'll ever see.
That was late writing. But you look at something like Infinity War, good story, right?
Great.
You look at Deadpool, the latest Deadpool. There were a bunch of holes in the movie, but it was a good story.
Well, that was pure popcorn entertainment, man.
That's just pure, unedited. Let's just not put a filter.
And they gave him a time traveling device at the end. That was the best.
It has the best after credit scene in the history of after credit scenes.
Agreed.
Holy cow, those were awesome.
I think we're gonna have to have.
You look at like Ragnarok. You look at and I never really read the comics. Good stories. And I think that I think they show that you can make a big blockbuster movie and have a good story. And there's no reason why The Last Jedi couldn't have had a good story.
Yeah, I agree.
No, well, again, this is a whole other episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a Let's Talk About Star Wars episode.
We should do probably a whole podcast just on
I'll end it with this. I think that the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when you look at that and you look at the new Star Wars movies, you can look at Iron Man 2, which nobody even thought that in the MCU was actually going to be the MCU when Iron Man 2 came out.
Yeah.
But in Iron Man 2, they were talking about Wakanda.
Yep.
And in the Avengers, they were talking about Wakanda. So
that arced out.
Yeah, but you also got to look at some of the X-Men movies they made. They were terrible.
Yeah, but that was
the point is that somebody in that studio, someplace was going, you know what? we're going to make 15 movies and they're going to go right this, you know. So somebody was thinking 10 years and $100 billion in advance of this project. That's somebody thinking big.
Yeah, but it's also they took the time to get the story right.
Story is the most important thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Without a good story, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I mean, how many movies have, I mean, look at Green Lantern. That could have been such a great movie.
It could have been great. Well, look at, what's the one that tanked pretty bad just recently? It was a big space epic thing, had the real young protagonist. I don't know. City of a Thousand Worlds.
City of a Thousand Worlds.
Oh, yeah. That was
phenomenal. Just gorgeous. The story was shit.
It was also the acting. They were
that too, yes.
No life. Like I watch The Expanse now. Do you guys watch The Expanse?
Oh yeah.
The acting's great. The story's great. The writing's great. The special effects are great. It just shows you, and like the new Star Trek that they did, this Discovery, that was great. Except for the ending. I wasn't too thrilled about that. But have you guys watched that at all?
I watched about half of it. I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, it's good. And you know, I love good stories. I hate watching something. I just watched Taken on Netflix, the first episode, and after 5 minutes of the new series, I was totally bored. I didn't like the acting. I didn't like the story. It was lazy.
I have so many series I love to watch. I love cinematic type storytelling, but I just cannot find the time to do it because work and writing.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to balance.
Yeah, life.
No, I watch a lot of TV between books. It's while I'm writing. It takes me, because you're writing a mountain. I mean, you guys know. So you get into it, and then it takes over your life, and then when you're done, you're like, what do I do? Like I just finished time. It went off to the copy edit, and I sat down I turned on Amazon Prime, and I was like, oh, Band of Brothers. I haven't watched that in like 10 years. I put it on, and I binge watched the series. I mean, great writing, great acting.
Yeah.
And never saw it.
You never saw it?
Oh my God.
I never saw that one.
Yeah, I don't like the Pacific one. It's not as good.
Band of Brothers is really good.
Was it really? I have to put it on my list.
It is. And Rome. If you've never watched Rome.
That one I saw, That one I saw. I saw most of it. It was really good.
Rome was the precursor to Game of Thrones.
That
was a big experiment.
And if you haven't watched Gunpowder yet, Gunpowder's a mini series on HBO. It's a Kit Harington, the guy that stars in Game of Thrones as Jon Snow. He's the lead in this. It's only 3 episodes, and it's basically about the Spanish and the English in a time period when the English are trying to stamp out Catholicism, and they're killing all the Catholic priests and kind of going on not really a crusade, but the religious wars of the time. It's pretty.
That's
pretty
cool
because
that's a segment of history you don't hear as much about. So I'm down with that.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I haven't even heard of it yet.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So all right, well, we need to wrap it up because we've gone a little late, and that's okay.
I think this is a record, man.
No, it's not.
No, David Weber.
David Weber.
I'm almost done with my beer. I told you it was a 2-beer.
That's a 2-beer episode.
We'll have a 3-beer episode, and then we'll go for the David Weber record. We're gonna 2 hours and 4 minutes or something.
I want to get a 6-beer episode where by the end Scott's passed out on the floor, and we've got to tilt the camera down.
We should do like a New Year's marathon. We should start at like 8
totally
o'clock. And just go until New Year's this year.
I'm totally down with that.
We need YouTube takeover where we just keep it running forever.
Just keep it running. It's just a freaking what do they call it? Filibuster. We'll be a YouTube filibuster.
We're gonna filibuster YouTube.
Is that Westeros behind you?
Yes, it is. It's maps of Westeros, but there's like 15 maps in the pack, and I can only put like 4 or 5 of them up there because my wall's not big enough. I need to buy like a gymnasium so I can put all of them. Which is on my bucket list, by the way, to own a gymnasium.
Buying a gymnasium. You got one started in your garage.
I do.
Everyone that came and hung out with us in the live chat, thanks everybody for coming out and hanging out with us on this Monday night. We started a little late and we had a little glitch starting, but we got it running, and I think we had a good show.
I wasn't using Chrome.
That's right. Always use Chrome. All about Mark, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It always is a blast, and hopefully we didn't scare you away, and you'll come back again sometime soon.
And it helps that you guys are You're all Chiefs fans, right?
I am a Chiefs fan. I wore my jersey the last episode. I was doing the research this morning, and I realized I tried to find it in the attic before the show started, and the kids went crazy, and I couldn't do it.
I pretty much don't watch football anymore. I'm like, that's 3 hours of my life I can never get back. See you later. Bye.
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's why everybody hates me.
So
well, listen,
we all hate you, Scott.
Really, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Always a good time to have you on, brother. Everybody come back, hang out with us. We'll be back live next week. Same bat time, same bat channel on Keystroke Medium. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys take it easy. Bye.